Okay, great. We're live now. Going to start the training for the AAG Mapathon. Training all the volunteers are going to help us. I'm Tom Gurton, and this is Andrew Ryan. We're both on the MapGift team, and we're part of an initiative at the State Department's Humanitarian Information Unit. And we launched 2 years ago and have been trying to increase the number of digital humanitarian mappers to help out in a whole bunch of humanitarian-related mapping tasks around the world. And we're all excited for you guys to take a part in helping us help new mappers during the 3-day mapathon at the AAG. So we'll start Wednesday on March 30th, and you can check the schedule at aagmapathon.org. And there's going to be basically 3 blocks of mapping, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They'll each start at 11:40 a.m. And on Monday and Friday, it'll last till 3 p.m. But Thursday, we're going to have a little bit of a shorter session to make room for the Disrupt Geo lightning talks. And that will only last through about 1:20 p.m. On Monday, we're going to be mapping Mekelle, Ethiopia, and Thursday we're going to be mapping Nepal, Pokhara, Nepal, and Friday we'll be mapping a section of Mozambique. And for each of these sessions, they're going to start off with a keynote speaker, someone who's directly involved with the project and will be able to speak about why that mapping project is important and how it relates to the initiatives that are happening in that city. And then we won't do an introduction in the front of the room, but instead we'll mention that we have volunteer mappers, and people sitting at each table will have access to an experienced mappers. The room layout is really good. It's basically divided into 2 sections, and in the front of the room there's theater, seating, and there's going to be like a stage for the session. It'll be really good. And then the other half of the room, there's going to be about 10 large tables, and there'll be about 10 seats on each table, and then we're hoping to have a mapping volunteer for each of the tables. So, we're going to start off today by sort of going through the process. I'm still pulling a little up. Let me mute. Hopefully that's better. So basically, the first step we need new mappers to do is to open their OpenStreetMap account. I'll start sharing my screen now. And we recommend people use either Chrome or Firefox as their browser. Safari works okay. Internet Explorer doesn't have all the features in it. And, the first step would be going to openstreetmap.org. I'm going to log out over here. Oh, and by the way, if anyone has any questions, you could just interrupt me and ask a question. That's fine. And when you go to openstreetmap.org, you just click on the upper right-hand corner and click on Sign Up. And then the new user inputs their email address, they type it in again, and then they put their display name. And this could be anything they want. It's what shows up publicly when people make map edits. And then they type in a password and then confirm their password and sign up.
And so you can use it for all the logins, so like Google, like Gmail or Google Apps.
Oh,
Work on it. Like alternative.
alternative.
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
open up
Some different
Google
options
things
here.
too.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's awesome. So yeah, so they could do this, but if they create a new login, then they just need to make sure they could access their email, so they could get the confirmation email. So it's a pretty easy step to do. And then the next step we'll do is go into the hot tasking manager. And the address for this is tasks.hotosm.org. And the hot tasking manager, it was created by the humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. And this was created to better manage and organize mapping projects. And many of the mapping projects are listed. You see that there's sort of a left-hand pane, and you can scroll through all the different projects. And this is where our project would be located. And our project is 1487. This is just one of the projects with Google District Mozambique. The other two we're still setting up. It'll probably be set up soon. So you could search for different names too in the search box. But we'll click on project 1487. Okay, great. So we reached the project in the hot tasking manager, and you could see two panes. On the left-hand sidebar, there's different tabs, and by default you see the project description. And on the right-hand side is a web map, and this is one of the strengths of the hot tasking manager. It divides the project into a grid, and it makes it easy for many mappers to organize themselves into mapping one area in an organized fashion. And essentially how it works is a mapper selects a square, and then it allows them to directly connect to OpenStreetMap and be able to create mapping data within that square. So first let's go through the left-hand side and see the different tabs you could choose. The description gives more details about the mapping project. And then the instructions tab mainly focuses on what exactly needs to be mapped and how it's mapped. We're still making a few updates. In here, you see that the entities to be mapped are roads, waterways. We're also going to add buildings. And then the change state comment, that is going to be the attribution for the different changes mappers make. But that should automatically be pre-filled. You'll notice this later. But for example, you see the source is Bing. So that means that using the default image you see in OpenStreetMap, that will be the source of making our edits. And below you see more instructions, for example, for roads. And we'll go more over roads specifically. Contribute, a little more information will show up once you click on a mapping square. And once mappers start completing different squares, you'll see it in the activity pane. And then also in statistics, you'll see the chart increasing as more mappers start completing their squares. Okay, so how you get started. Basically, in the web map, you could pan around, you could zoom in and zoom out, and look at the OpenStreetMap base layer and select a certain section of the map. And once you select a square, you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see a Start Mapping button. So you could select the Start Mapping button, and then you'll see different options pop up. Right now it says Edit with JOSM. Yours might be a little bit different, but right here you see a down arrow, and there's different options of the editors you could use. But we'll be mainly focused in ID Editor. It is simple to use and easy for beginners to use. The JOSM is also another editor that's used mainly by advanced mappers. It has a few more advanced features, and it's a little bit more complicated because there's more menu options and buttons. But we'll select ID Editor, and now it's telling me to log in. The Hot Tasking Manager, you can log in directly with your OpenStreetMap credentials, which is great. So I will do that. Okay, but sometimes if you log in, then you have to just go back and just click Edit again with your editor, and it'll work the second time around. And you see it takes me right to the square in OpenStreetMap, and you see that square is represented by a pink border. Please try to follow along if you're able to. It'll be good practice. But before I start editing this map, I do want to go over a few more things in the Hot Tasking Manager. You might notice, but if you have a square selected, you'll have a orange border around it. This sort of signifies to people that this square is locked right now, which means they shouldn't map it at the same time. This helps also prevent editing conflicts. Like, for example, if two people were editing the same row at the same time and one person saved their edits, then the second person, if they have different features and try to save their edits, then an editing conflict would probably appear. So having people map in their own defined squares helps prevent this. Also, saving often also helps out everybody in making less editing conflicts. But you also notice that there's different squares that have different colors. That's because once someone is done with their square, they'll click the Mark Task as Done, and then the square will turn orange. And then that signifies to people that someone has worked on this square once, and now it's ready to be validated. That means another mapper should go and review the first person's work. And if everything looks right, then they'll say, yes, this square looks good, and then the square will turn green, which is great. But if the square still needs more work, they have the ability to mark the square as incomplete and even write messages to the original mapper and, for example, give them mapping tips, which is great as well. Another feature that is possible is the ability to split squares. Like, for example, if a square is too large and there's way too much mapping, it might be easier to split that square up. So I will demonstrate that now. In my current square that's selected, I need to unlock it first. I'm going to click on Stop Mapping, and I will click on the square right beside it and click on Start Mapping. And then if you see the link Split, you could click on Split. And now you notice that there's 4 squares. So it might make it easier for mappers to map this area now. So now the individual squares are just like any other square. You could start mapping it. Another good suggestion is when someone is done if they're working on a square but they're not able to complete it, then they should click Stop Mapping to unlock it, so someone else is able to work on it since they stopped. Any other tips you could think of in terms of the tasking manager?
At this point, not.
Yeah, I think it's really great because you'll see a whole bunch of selected squares, and throughout like the Mapathon, you'll see a bunch of people working, and then you'll see more squares turning orange and green. So it's really great for large mapping events. So I will click on Start Editing again with ID Editor. So let's see here. And let's zoom in so we can actually see different things. You notice on the top bar, it's grayed out the different editing options, but once you're already in edit mode now, but once you zoom in closer, then you're able to actually make edits. It's easy to see a river here, or a stream, so I will start off with a stream. So on the right-hand panel, you see zoom in and zoom out functions, which is great. You could also zoom in and zoom out with your mouse. And then on the top panel, you have the ability to draw point, lines, and areas. We'll start off with a line because lines are used to collect like streams and rivers, although if you had a really large river, then you could collect it with an area as well. So I click once on line, and then you see the crosshairs appear, and then you're ready to start drawing your line. You click once at the beginning, and then you just start clicking and drawing different nodes while essentially tracing the imagery. And if you get near the end of where you could see, if you hold down your mouse button and drag it, you could still pan while continuing to draw the same line. And I think if you mess up, it's okay. Like, let's say I messed up and drew here. Like, what do I do now? Let's see if I click here. If I clicked here, and I guess it ended the line, which is fine. I'm just going to drag this line close by and then click on the last node again. And whenever you click on something, usually there's options that appear. One of them, in this case, is continue the line. So I will continue it now. Sometimes you may not be able to see the river itself, but you could sort of, like, there might be trees blocking the way, but you could see that the river continues further on, so you could still continue the river even though you can't see maybe every part of it. Now here, the stream, it ends and branches off in two places, and you could either continue it north, I think, or end it here. I'm just going to end it here because it seems like it branches off rather than just being branched off of. Okay, but now it's ready to be defined as a stream. You see it's already selected because it's glowing right now. So on the left-hand panel, you see all your different options on what type of feature it should be. In this case, it's a water feature, and then additional options appear, and I will classify it as a stream. And then you even have more options appear. For example, if it had a name or if you need a width. But in this case, just making it a stream is good enough. So you could either click outside anywhere else to deselect it, or click this little checkbox right here. And congratulations, you just drew your first stream here. Now I will draw two other streams. Let's zoom in a little bit more. So that means I could draw another line. And I just want to note that there's shortcuts for almost anything. And many times it shows you what the shortcut is. Like in this case, to draw a line, it's 2. So I could just press 2, and you see the crosshairs pop up. So for this new line, I am just going to select the last node of the previous stream and continue from there. I'll just double click to finish the line here from now. And you see that you have the same options pop up on the left-hand side, but it also remembers your previous selection. So it has stream already, so I'm just going to click on stream this time. And that's good. I'm going to click away, and now I'm going to draw a new line. We're at that same branch point. Double click and then classify it as a stream right now. So now I have essentially 3 different streams here, and it looks good to me. This is sort of an advanced function, but usually when there's a stream crossing a road, there's either a bridge or a culvert. So I'm just going to click a point, and I think I'm just going to first, let's see. That's better. Okay, I'm going to draw a point right here. And I'm hoping it'll find a culvert for me. You see a bunch of options to your left for points of interest, but you could also search for one. Okay, I do not see one.
Something like that. Similarly. Usually there's like
Okay, so this is a little bit of a detour, but it's a good detour. I'm going to open a new tab here, go to the OpenStreetMap wiki, because I want to make sure I have the tag right. Search for culvert. You could basically find like anything you have questions from. You could find it on the OpenStreetMap wiki. And in this case, you have the tunnel equals culvert tag. And a culvert is a device used to channel water, so I will use that. Let's see. Point tag tunnel equals culvert. Okay, I think that's right. But okay, I'll go back to, you usually don't see that too often, but it was a little bit of a detour. Sorry about that. But you do see this road here, so we'll select the road. And you could select on almost any feature, and you'll see how it's classified on the left-hand side. In this case, you see it's a minor/unclassified road. And before, you saw me input a tag in this tagging section. The way ID Editor works is that they list almost all of the different attributes that could be filled out on this graphical user interface, which is great. But in addition, when you're dealing with OpenStreetMap, everything has a tag and a value to it. So if you're not familiar with this graphical user interface, you could always just go down and look at all the tags and see what the tags are. In this case, I could see that it's a highway that's unclassified, and the surface is ground. And it seems pretty well collected, at least to me.
Show them how to kind of add the extra nodes or vectors to smooth out. You wanted to kind of adjust your road as you go, like that. Like the corners of
Exactly. Okay, that's great. So let's pretend this road wasn't really drawn well. Let's say it looked like this. Once you select the road, you could see all the nodes that belong to it, and you could drag them around if you want to. But you're also able to add additional roads and to make it, more precise. So you see that in between two nodes is a triangle symbol. And what happens is if you select and drag this triangle symbol, it'll create a new node where that triangle symbol was. And now you have an extra node, and therefore you have two new triangle symbols. So this is a great way of adding more nodes and like making a curve more accurate, if you will. So just practice around with this, and you'll sort of have a better understanding of how it works.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool if you have like a really windy road and you want to make it more precise instead of just kind of clicking through it and making it kind of a rough estimate.
Exactly. Very useful tip. I think we could go over more of the roads, but let's start marking a building. Buildings are marked as areas, and you could see area on your top panel here. A little bit hard to see. I will zoom in one more, just to make it a little bit easier. And I will click once on a corner of a building, and then I will start drawing other corners. And you could double click on the last node. That's an option, and it'll finish the square. And then on the left-hand side, I will go to Building Features, and I will mark it a generic building because I'm not sure exactly what type of building it is. And that is, for this project, that is all I need to collect. You see that the actual tag that is being collected is building, and the value is yes. I will click Done, and that is my building here. So how to select a building. If you select on the edge of a building, you will see different options pop up. You could rotate it around if you would like. You could square the corners of this area. I drew my building okay, but it could be a little bit more square. You might have noticed it. It's a little bit more square now. I tend to do that for almost all my buildings. Right after I'm done, I almost always just press the shortcut S to square it. You can move it to a different location. You could also make the area circular. Sometimes, especially some villages in Africa, they have circular huts. So this is a helpful shortcut. See how it's circular now? And another good button on the top here you see is the undo button. So I could just click the undo button and it'll go back to the square shape. Also, if you select a building and press Control-C to copy it or Command-C on a Mac, you could then paste it with Control-V or Command-V. So let me try doing that. And then you could sort of drag it where the new position should be. Yeah, in this case, this new building is almost the same. It's basically the same size, so copying works great for this. It's sort of hard to see, but I see a smaller building below it. So I'm going to press 3 is the area shortcut, draw it, click on building, square it, click away, and I drew that building now. So I drew a few streams and a few buildings, and I noticed that I want to save it now. I usually recommend, people save every 5 to 10 minutes. If you're a beginner, it should be more like 5 minutes, I would say. And on the top, you see the save button, and you also see the number of changes you made as well before you last saved it. So I'm going to click save. And you notice on the change set comments, they were directly copied from the project page, which is great, including the tags AAG Mapathon, which is what we'll be using, and the project number. And now all you have to do is you see the different changes you made, which is cool. And now you could click save, and you're uploading changes to OpenStreetMap. Okay, great. I will zoom out a little bit more. Let's see here. Nice, it works this time.
Yeah, yours doesn't work. I don't know why.
Okay. Let's just go over more of what's on the different panel on your right here. You don't really need to show my location. I think it'll take me somewhere else, like to Washington, D.C. or something.
Take you there.
It'd be good if you're mapping your own like local city or something. If you go to background settings, right now it's on Bing aerial imagery. I don't even know if there's other options available. Let's check it out. Oh, there's Mapbox satellite imagery, which is interesting, but Bing seems to be better. You could look at just the basic OpenStreetMap. And then for some of the projects, there'll be custom imagery, so this will be pre-selected. And so you'll be able to switch between Bing imagery and then the custom imagery. But right now, there's no custom imagery for this project. Fixed alignment is something we most likely don't have to worry about. That's if, for example, you had custom imagery, but if it was misaligned with the base imagery, you might want to shift it a little bit. Let's go to map data. There's no overlays for this project. Fill areas, that's more of a stylistic option. But map features, these are basically the different categories of features on your map, and you could it's basically for the mapper to better visualize things if things are being obscured by the editing layer. they could, for example, uncheck traffic roads, and the road still exists. They're just able to see what's underneath the road. Okay, and then if you click on Help, the walkthrough is also a good beginner's guide, I would say, which is another option. I would encourage all of you to go through it at least once, and you could even suggest it to new beginners too, because it's interactive. If you click on it, it basically walks you through how to draw points, areas, and lines. Like it says, drag the map, and then you drag the map. And then it says, click on a point to select it. So I think it's well done. So that's something else to highlight. So I just saved my edits here, and so let's pretend that I completely mapped the whole square, and I will now mark the task as done. And now you will see it become orange again. And now someone else could review it. So now let's pretend I'm another mapper. So I see that this is orange, so I will click on it to double check it, and I will click Review the Work. So then I would go back and click Edit with ID Editor. So let's say I did that and was looking at the square again, and I could come back to the tasking manager later, and I could leave a comment if I wanted to, or I could click Invalidate or Validate as well. Let's see. So I think we could go over maybe just a few more things in ID Editor, but before we did that, does anyone have any questions so far? No? Okay.
I typed a question in the chat.
Oh, great. Okay.
So I guess I can just explain it. So if I'm tracing a natural feature like a stream, and I reach the boundary of the square where I'm working, is it better to just stop right there, or should I continue tracing the stream until it gets to a natural and like it meets up with another stream or it stops?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That's a good question. So I will go back to ID Editor, because this question comes up often, and I would say it depends how you feel like. Like, for example, like this is a road, and if you were mapping this road in an easterly direction from your square, you would notice that, oh, this road just keeps on going for a long distance. So it's not worth continuing it because you'll likely cross someone else's square significantly. So I would end it just to the right here. Another example is, let's see here. Sometimes you have buildings which are like right in the boundary. So for that, I would just, it's perfectly fine to just draw a building that's crossing the boundary, because someone's going to have to draw it. and if no one draws it because it's touching the boundary, then it won't get collected. And also the chance of it having an editing conflict is very low to begin with. Because right after you drew it, I would just save then, and then if someone's editing the adjacent square, they'll be able to see your edit within like a minute or two anyway, so they'll know that it's already been drawn.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, thank you.
I want to go back over to where the river is, of the stream.
Yes.
I would say at most, like maybe go a little bit into the adjacent square, like for something like at the bottom of the square. It might be a little obscure to see. Someone might not know that's a stream, So if you like continue like just inside the other boundary, if it's identified as a stream, it might make it a little easier for the next person to come in and say like, all right, well there's a stream, so then it's going to continue down. So
Yeah.
I would say
Okay. I
maybe
could see that.
at most do like a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But just because not everyone's experienced or will know that a stream is there.
Definitely, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. I will draw another road now. Go to line. And again, I will make it connect the previous road. You can start drawing down. Again, you go to road features, and then I think a residential road is fine because I see a bunch of residences here. And then that'll be good. And so roads are sometimes a little tricky. Let me save this. Because there's many different types of roads, and at least in Africa, the Wikipedia says to classify them based on their use. Let me go back to the tasking manager. If you go to the description, you'll see that there's the there's the Mozambique tracing guide. So I will open this in a new tab. And this tracing guide was created by USA and Peace Corps, who are working on this project. And essentially this project right here, if you read the description, they want a better base map, including the different roads, to better help people with the transportation and then also the buildings. And so in the future, they're going to do malaria spraying in these areas to prevent mosquitoes that carry malaria around people's houses. So having all the buildings collected will help them determine, okay, which buildings have already been sprayed, and then which ones do they have to go back to and try to spray. So they worked on setting up this guide to help people, and they have sort of descriptions for different types of roads here. And there's secondary roads, tertiary roads, residential roads as well. So those will be the main roads that will be collected. And sometimes it's hard to tell which is which until you sort of look at the big picture. But secondary roads, they connect the main regional capital cities and towns of importance with each other. Where tertiary roads, they connect basically towns and villages together. And residential roads, they connect. I mean, those are where you have significant amounts of housing on the sides of the roads, and unclassified / minor roads. Those are also very small roads, like residential roads, or like they're not even big enough to be tertiary roads, but they're just roads. That means they don't have significant residences on the sides or housing on the sides. They're just regular roads. So this is another good guide to check out. And I was just told that you do not have to worry about classifying the roof type of buildings as metal or thatched. That will be used for another project. I think this was more for the field-based mapping project. Some of my colleagues were actually in Mozambique last week working on this. So I think this was more for collecting information on the field where people could determine the roof type more easily. So that about covers it. I see a lake here, so I want to see if very quickly I could find a lake. Let's see here. I do not see a lake, but I do see the higher density area. Sometimes things pop out to me in a higher density area. This is not a lake, but this is a river that is so large that it's best collected as an area or both an area and a line. Let me click on this line here, river. Just going to move this a little bit here. And also, so you might, be editing an area where there's mapping edits already. That's fine. Many times you could add to what has already been collected or correct previous edits. Let me know if you see anything.
Yeah, I think as long as it's not validated, you can still edit it and add on top of what someone has previously done.
Yes. So this, I see that they tagged this as natural water, and water equals river. Let's see here. Yeah, so someone's going to have lots of fun drawing all these buildings. So I'd probably, if you were to start editing this and looking at all these buildings, I'd probably go back to the tasking manager and split up this square. But definitely a lot of buildings here. Oh, they popped up. Sometimes if you zoom in,
Yeah.
they'll pop up. I didn't know you have to zoom in this much, but actually a lot of them have been collected. So that's something to be aware of. But like in this instance, I'd probably add this building here. What's this? This is a path. So paths are good for where like usually, what's this? Abandoned railway. Interesting. Paths are usually drawn where people could walk, but not like it's not meant for vehicle traffic. A secondary road, a trunk road, residential road. Yeah, so I would encourage you checking out the Wikipedia page, OpenStreetMap Wikipedia page, and just checking out the different types of roads. Then you'll get a better idea of what's there or not. What's this? Industrial building. That's interesting. It looks more like a tank to me. Like in this case, I'd go and probably search OSM Wiki for what a tank looks like.
It's like supposed to be a lake there? Or...
Yeah. This, let's move this out of the way. Yeah, this obviously seems like an error, so I will delete this. Deleting, you could do the...
Didn't you say that there was someone, like, some people there on the ground doing this?
Okay.
The imagery
Yeah,
might be
yeah,
outdated.
yeah. Let me click on this again. Look, there's a button that says view on openstreetmap.org. I think it'll take me to openstreetmap.org. See here.
Because if they're using field pages or something, the imagery
Oh,
might
that's
be
cool.
outdated.
Yeah. So in the bottom, you click on view on openstreetmap.org, and it takes me to it. And you could see it was edited about 2 months ago by this person, and it's part of this change set. I'll click on this change set. And, oh, wow. So the change set says imagery used was custom imagery. So yeah, so we're using different imagery.
Yeah.
So that's very important. I'm just going to test something here for fun. Copy. Let's see if it works. Go to custom here. I don't think it likes that. Probably wouldn't like that. Z, X. Select those characters. C. Oh, good work.
Yes, there's
So there's apparently
Yeah.
custom imagery lying around. Okay. I'll ask around and see.
but yeah, there's definitely a water feature there.
It's very interesting. Okay. So yes, I think that's a good point. If something isn't necessarily wrong, if it's not if it's not visible in your imagery, it might be drawn from a different set of imagery. So just be aware of that. Well, we've gone over a lot of stuff, and I think an hour is a perfect time not to overwhelm you guys or bore you guys to death. So I am just going to conclude, see if there's any last questions, and then we'll keep on keeping you guys updated on how the projects are going, and feel free to contact us if you have any more questions. So how does everyone feel? Does everyone feel relatively comfortable? Yeah? Great. Good. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week. We're all super excited. Until next time.
Thank you.